So I was showing this mediocre way, as I called it. Well, there is a best way, of course, as well. JavaScript also has query selectors. So now if I change this and I use a query selector instead, I still use the document object here, but then I use query selector. And the query selector allows me to select by ID, by class name, by tag name, but all in one single method. How does it work? It uses CSS selectors for that. Now, if you're not familiar with CSS selectors basically are how you define, if writing style sheets, which elements should receive a certain style. And you could write a code that all H1 elements are styled, or only elements that have a certain class. And the way these CSS selectors look like are basically that if you have something like H1 without anything else, just a string of H1 here, this would select all H1 elements. So let's add one here. Let's add a H1 element which says header. If I now clear my console, so if I now execute this code by showing the console just enough that I can click run, like this, you see we select the header with that query selector. Now you can also select by class by adding a dot in front of it, and then the class name like simple. And this is how you write it in CSS code as well. So if I now hit run, we select this li element. Notice that we don't get an array here, and that is because I'm using query selector. And this will only give me the first element which matches this query. If we want to get the array, so all the elements matching this query, you would have to use query selector all. If I now hit run, you see that now it's an array of list items. It only has one object, but it could hold multiple ones. So if I add this class to, let's say, another element, and this is here an anchor tag, no list item, and I hit run again, you see both elements here. But again, if only using query selector without the all, we only get the first one, the list item, and the second one is omitted. So use whatever you need. Now, this is the class selector. You may also use the hashtag selector to select by ID. So if I now add an ID, for example, to the header, ID equals easy, then I can select by ID easy here, click run again, and you see I get this header. So this query selector is the fastest possible way to select elements by certain characteristics, be that their tag name, their ID, their class name. You can also select by attribute or something else. And again, to learn more about that, check out how CSS selectors work, or check out the document attached, the cheat sheet attached to this module, where you will find a link to the query selector and you're able to learn more. But generally, that is how it works, and that is how you select elements with it. Now, of course, with the element selected, you may still use style background color and set it equal to red, for example, and I'll get out of my console log, hit run, and well, in order to see it, I'll show the output as well. Close this so that this is a bit more easy to see. And again, hit run, it's getting red here. So this still works. That is what the selector is there for, to work with it. But it makes it easier. You don't have these chained calls. Instead, it's very simple. And of course, as said, you can use multiple ways to select your elements here.